Hello, welcome to the South African String Convention 2020. My name is Alistair Rutherford and I am the Research Assistant and Project Manager to the ARCO project, a long-distance learning initiative between the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire in the UK and the Morris Isaacson Centre for Music in Soweto. We teach string instruments, violin, viola, cello, double bass, via Zoom and have been doing so since 2015. And the topic I've chosen to talk about today is breaking down barriers. Now, music in itself breaks down many barriers, and in the COVID age, we have yet another barrier to overcome. I'd like to talk about the different nuance of our relationship with technology and how as musicians we can overcome this barrier in order to transcend age, skill, culture and everything else that divides so much of this world, and so we can communicate through our language, which is music. We live in an ever developing era in which there is so much information and technology available to us at our fingertips that conventions such as this are able to exist. However, as this technology develops, we feel sometimes in a constant state of catching up or not knowing exactly how to use this and where it's going to go next. With technology comes many different new challenges, and today's talk will discuss how three areas will work together in order to create a better learning experience for not just the student but the teacher, and how to advance our music making skills and supplement this with technology. Technical barriers, generational barriers and cultural barriers are all things that have come to the fore this year, in particular with the use and availability of technology. And today I hope to inform you and set some sparks alight in how we may think about the online lesson and use it to our advantage to help our class, our students and our learning. Technical barriers. So as string teachers, the very first port of call in most lessons is tuning. So we will welcome the student into the room, and it's pretty clear if their violin has been tuned, if it's gone out of tune, if they understand the tuning process, if that's with the fine tuners or the pegs. Whereas online, it's simply not possible to adjust the intonation for your student, which creates opportunity amongst the problem of not being able to solve this instantly. From my experience working with my students, it's a long process, but rewarding. We find ourselves frustrated maybe at the beginning of the lesson when that A string is just chronically flat, and for as much as you want your student to keep going clockwise, maybe there's not enough graphite in the switch, there's not enough space left. However, perseverance may really help develop the student's ear. Now, I must say, if there is a problem with the pegs, that is really quite difficult to help with. And us, fortunately, at the Morris Isaacson Centre for Music, we team teach, and often there is a teacher on the ground there who is able to do that quick adjustment. But nonetheless, it is worth, for not every lesson of course, but if you do have a half an hour lesson, there's nothing wrong with tuning for 10 minutes on an occasion, if that is going to develop independence in your student's ear. So that is the very first barrier as string players and teachers in the lesson. Moving on from that, we have posture. Now, maybe a lot of you listening in today have already got experience at teaching online, but what was very clear to me at the start of my experience was that tension really does not transcend through the lens. It's virtually impossible to understand how tense a student's left hand may be in holding up. You cannot see or just get the understanding of how maybe a student's back isn't aligned properly without a multi-camera angle, and even with multi-camera it's very difficult to notice such small nuance. And so I would advise perhaps devising a routine in which you can engage with the student to go through posture and to have in the practice room, and actually it can be really quite rewarding and refreshing for you as a musician to ingrain that into your routine as well. Many of us are in unsuitable sized rooms. For example, I'm very tall, and quite more often than not, if I go to the heel, then I may lose the tip of my bow. So really, I would urge you to develop some sort of postural exercises, whether that's rudimentary, based in Alexander technique, if there's more of a personalised adjustment to the way the chin rest or the shoulder rest is adjusted for the student. So the speed of the online lesson is considerably different to an in-person lesson. You may find the rapport between teacher and student incredibly different, and in your experience that really does affect how you engage in some areas of the lesson. Now, the main area which is hindered is the speed in which the data is transferred. So often you may find that you may try and interrupt a student and they carry on because they simply do not hear the command. And this has an after effect on the lesson overall, as you as a teacher feel that the progression in comparison with a normal lesson is diminished. However, this increased time for reflection may be of benefit. We often want to cram as much information in as possible, yet the student may have slightly different speed of learning. Now, it's getting to grips and understanding how the technology also communicates with us. We have to make sure that we're not wasting our time. Now, also using the technology is the camera angle, as discussed before. And quite often, the fine details that you would simply come closer to the student or micro adjust is not possible. And I think I find really quite helpful is to almost move myself to the instrument and to the camera. So as an example, with my instrument here, if I were to demonstrate a third finger placed down slightly more, say, at a higher angle, it's quite often difficult to see that from the in front view. And so simply coming to the camera and showing from behind gives that extra view, and the student can see and maybe hear the fine adjustment of the string. We are constantly learning how learning is perceived through the lens, and every student is completely different. And that comes on to the next step about the understanding of technology and how ingrained it is already in our lives pre and now post lockdown. We are at an incredible crossroads of our relationships with technologies, as Generation Z now overtake in the main learning body from the millennials and earlier. And with that comes a completely different relationship with the screen. Gone with the days of pen and paper, although I think it is still incredibly important to maintain less screen time. We may over-exaggerate or even overestimate our competency, our students' competencies with technology. A learner who has grown up with a tablet, a mobile phone, a computer, and doesn't know any difference may understand the screen in a completely different way that we who did not grow up with that by our side. Now, of course, as string players, we are acoustic musicians, and anything that comes away from the natural acoustics of the instrument and the room diminishes the understanding of the resonance and tone. Therefore, it can be argued in any video conference lesson, it is a measure of guesswork to the tone and sound production of the instrument. Now, with that presents an opportunity to perhaps focus on other areas which may not attract as much attention in a traditional lesson. Screen fatigue is now in the dictionary for 2020, is one of those key words, and I think it is a real thing and really important to understand about your student and how much information is being sent over through technology. Now, unfortunately, technology is a dividing opportunity. People don't have the same access to Wi-Fi, to data, to HD cameras, to good microphones, to good instruments. And I think really trying to get to the core of music making in the room is incredibly important. And I would, if possible, try and invite parents or guardians or even friends to experience and feedback during and after the lesson and include them in the music making. It's hard enough inspiring a student to practice throughout the week and maintain that level in an in-person lesson, and that's only going to be exaggerated further by the removalness of the screen. So coming back to that, we now think about the cultural divide as well. I've seen a lot of lessons taken globally. Us, for example, in the ARCO project, we all speak English, but for many people involved, it's not their first language, and really the music making is also incredibly different across the world. And of course, notation and technique is a linear form, but really music making is not, and that's what provides such a rich basis of community and culture across the world. And I think it's really important for us to learn and understand about music making and culture from different backgrounds, and just how we actually relate to the art form. It's incredibly fascinating, and really to delve even deeper into that provides much richer information on yourself as a musician, but also as a person. And for one, I think the opportunity of distance learning is something that it is really in its infancy, and we're going to learn a heck of a lot more, and it's incredibly exciting to see how technology can advance. Perhaps we may be able to use augmented and virtual reality, and how will we catch up with that technology as humans and as musicians. So I'd like to thank you for listening in today, and please, if you do have any questions, write to me, or send me an email. I'll put that in the description. Thank you.